anything you say regarding the lacrosse?
Oh,
And what is the benefit and
it's just about the game?
yeah.
Okay. So I've played lacrosse for over 20 years, and personally, this is my favorite athletic activity to do. Not only does it teach you teamwork, it teaches you camaraderie, but it's also a great way to come out and get some exercise on the field. It requires a ton of hand-eye coordination. There's some physical contact to it. It's a great sport for anyone who's looking to kind of pick up a new activity and get out on the field. So specifically with this version of lacrosse that we're doing here this week, this one's heading towards the Olympics. So who knows, if you start playing lacrosse now, you could represent India or any of your home countries in the Olympics in the years to come. So don't be afraid to come out and try it. It's a great sport, and thank you so much for everyone having me this week. I'm really excited to be here. Today in the morning session, we're going to do some work out on the field, and then when we come back in the afternoon, we're going to go into a classroom and actually present some of the information using some slides and other forms of activities that we have, right? So first off, I want everyone to raise their hand if they've ever officiated any sport in their life before. Okay, so I want you to think about it like this. A minor foul is something that you see and you go, oh, okay. A major foul is something that you see and go, ooh, that looks like it hurt. And then an expulsion foul is something that you go, oh, I never want to see that. Or even violence is a good word for it, right? So the major ones that we're going to be looking at are kind of the minor foul, or the major fouls. They're kind of the ones that occur the most out in the play, and the ones that we're actually going to penalize the people on the field for. Through what some of the major fouls are, right? Okay. So if you just give us 30 seconds to set up, we'll be right there with you, okay? Specific version of lacrosse that is going to be part of the Olympics, that particular action has been taken out and is now illegal, okay? The second one, and this is probably the most common one that you'll see out in the field, is something that we call slashing, right? So everyone is walking around with a stick in their hand, right? And in order to play defense, you're actually allowed to use this stick in order to try to dislodge the ball from the person that has it. However, when you go to try to dislodge the ball, you are not allowed to make contact with their body, their head, anywhere on their person that isn't their gloved hands or on the stick itself, right? So when someone is going to throw what we call a check or a defensive motion that is trying to dislodge the ball, they have to make sure that the stick is thrown in a manner that hits the stick and dislodges the ball. If they throw a check that goes anywhere on their person, especially in their head, that is what we call slashing, right? So Chris, could you demonstrate what a slash is? Nicely, right? So anywhere where it's not on their hand, their back. Yes, in the back, in the head, anywhere on their person, that is a foul, right? So the other thing with slashing is that intent does matter, right? So not only is it when you make contact with someone, but if Chris is running down the field and he throws or winds up and tries to hit TJ with a stick but misses, that is still technically a slash, right? Because the intent of violence was present, right? So we want to make sure that people are in control of their sticks when we're out there, and that they're not trying to purposely hurt their fellow player. Okay, does that make sense so far?
Yes, sir.
Yep, wonderful. The other thing about this game is you'll notice that the men's and the women's game, they wear different types of equipment, right? So the men, they're going to wear a helmet, they have padded gloves, padded elbow pads, and they're using the stick with the basket on the end, right? Chris, do you have one? Okay. In the women's game, they actually do not have that protective equipment, right? So the rules sometimes differ from the men's and the women's version of the sport, right? So in the women's version of it, you are not allowed to make contact anywhere on the body with your stick when you go to throw a check, right? So in this example, when when Chris was hitting TJ with a stick, in women's, anywhere where he makes contact down here on his hands, anywhere on here is a slash, right? Because they're not wearing any sort of equipment. We want to make sure that they are safe.
Yep, so women's only the stick.
Yes.
Men's hands or stick.
Yes. So the men, and Chris is putting on the equipment now. basically, we give a little bit of leeway with the men because they are wearing padded equipment. So they are allowed to throw checks in certain areas that the women are not, right? So when we're on the field and we're walking down and he's got all his equipment on, ball's in, right? So it is perfectly okay to make contact with Chris's hands right here, right? That is okay. So when we're playing the men's version of the game, you are allowed to hit their bottom hand, you're allowed to hit their top hand, and you're allowed to hit any part of their stick, right? That is perfectly acceptable. Now, what's also going to happen is that while Chris is running with the ball, he's going to do something called cradling, right? And when you do that, you're allowed to do it with either two hands, like he's showing here, or with one hand, right? And when he's cradling with one hand, can you put it in your other hand and put the hand down? Okay. So when he's cradling with one hand, he's allowed to keep his other arm that's not on the stick in front of him and down at his side like this, right? So basically that protects his stick from the defensive player hitting it, right? It is perfectly acceptable for TJ to make contact with his arm, right? Because he is basically shielding it from him on the defensive side. As long as TJ is trying to play the stick and Chris is holding his arm out to defend it, that is A-okay, right? What isn't okay is when we start hitting them up here or in the back, right? We don't want any of those things to happen because that is not going for the stick. That is just slashing someone with your lacrosse stick, right? Okay. Thank you. Did everyone understand?
Yeah.
Right? Okay, so those are probably the two most violent fouls that you will see out there and the ones that we're trying to eliminate from the game and penalize the other team if we do see those, right? The next one up being something called a cross check. Now, without them demonstrating, can anyone maybe, while we're standing here, show me what you think a cross check is based on the name? Maybe one of the guys with the sticks here. Yeah, absolutely. You want to
Cross check.
a cross check? Yeah.
See, with this thing, you cannot hit like anyway.
Yes.
You cannot stop.
Yes, that is exactly
That is
right.
cross check.
Yep.
Clap.
Right. So a cross check is when you check an opponent with a part of their stick or what we call the shaft, right? So it is perfectly acceptable defense to put your hands together and come at Chris like that, and as long as it's equal pressure, that's okay. As soon as TJ opens his hands up and extends the stick and hits him with part of the shaft, that is a cross check. The hallmark action of a cross check is when you see their arms go from here to here, right? The extension of their arms and their stick. That's what we're looking for as officials. That's a bread and butter cross check, right? This is okay. They're allowed to play defense technically with their hands apart, and you're allowed to just stand there and hold against his body. That's perfectly fine. As soon as he extends his arms and uses the shaft of his stick, that is a cross check, and we want to make sure that that's out, right? Okay, the next one, pretty self-explanatory, tripping, right? So this is the act of basically making your opponent fall in a way using either your stick or your feet or any other part of your body, right? So we want to make sure that they're not falling to the ground violently, right? So we want to remove this aspect of the game. So when we're looking for this foul, we basically want to make sure that the player has the ball, and then from there, you are not allowed to basically knock them over in a way that dispossesses them of the ball and makes them fall to the ground, right? So whether it's a push, whether you're using your feet to kick them, whether you stick your stick in between his legs, all of that is illegal, and we, as long as he has the ball, that is a tripping foul. Right? The next one's a little bit more complicated. It's called unnecessary roughness. So, unnecessary roughness. Right? So this one is usually called on an offensive player who has the ball. right? So in olden versions of lacrosse, you are actually able to, with the ball, run into me and knock me over. Boom! Right? And he's allowed to keep going, right? Technically, that is illegal in this version of the game. So what he just did is called a bull dodge, like the animal, right? So he's barging through me. So what we're looking for there is that he is allowed to come into me and allow me to play defense on him with equal pressure, right? As soon as he runs through my body and knocks me to the ground, that is what we call unnecessary roughness, right? So you are allowed to make physical contact in this game. We are not trying to eliminate that totally. However, we do want to make sure that the dangerous plays are taken out. So you are allowed to run into each other and make equal pressure. As soon as it's more than fair, that's when we call the penalty on them.
So think like basketball,
Like a charge.
Boxing out is okay. I can put my
Yeah.
my rear end here, and I can try to push against him with that. That's okay. But if I just start here
and throw the elbow.
and I run at him, not okay.
Yes. Yeah, think of it like a charge in basketball, right? Yeah. Yeah, 2 shots. Yeah. Okay. The next one is an illegal stick. Now this one's going to be a little bit better when we go and take a look at the PowerPoint presentation because there are specific rules around it. But essentially when we're looking at it, there are measurements about how long a stick can be, right? There are measurements about how wide a stick can be, right? And then there's 2 other things about the stick that we need to really make sure of. All of these strings on the outside, they need to be a specific length. So they can only be sticking out 2 centimeters, or 2 inches.
2 inches.
2 inches, thank you. So about 5 centimeters, right? If they're longer than that, that's technically illegal. And then from a men's perspective, can you show off the depth of the wall? So from the men's perspective, when you draw, when we put the ball inside the stick, at the bottom here, this is what we call a pocket, right? Like the pocket in your pants. So what we want to look for is that the ball is not allowed to be below these 2 bottom rails on the stick. Does that make sense? Yeah. Right? So when we take a look at it, I'm gonna walk by. So I want you guys to look at this. So when we take a look at it in eye level and we line up the 2 rails, we cannot see daylight between the rails and the top of the ball, right? So this is okay because we can see the rails line up and we can see the top of the ball above the rail.
The ball is above that.
If there's anything that has below that, that is your
eye level. So if I hold it up here,
so when you line it up and look at it, you can't see any daylight below the rails, right? Right. So all of this is something that we will be looking
it
at
changes
pregame,
as you're taller than me.
and then we will also be looking at it if there's a coach or someone challenges an illegal stick during the game, right? And then from a women's perspective, and I don't think we have a stick, there's also some rules about their stick is much shallower, kind of looks like this. So the ball cannot be sitting below the top rail when you put it.
It has to be like this.
Yeah, it has to be above.
On a women's stick, it has to be up here.
Right? And we'll
Please, thank you.
we'll take a look at more of that later, right? The other major foul in here that we'll take a look at is specific to women, right? So I mentioned a little bit earlier that the women don't have protective equipment, right? So can I have the ball, please? For those of you who haven't been associated with this, who has never touched a lacrosse ball before? Is everyone familiar with this?
Yes.
Right? This is solid rubber.
Yes.
This really hurts if you get hit with it, right? And if you're not wearing any padding and get hit at close range, this is really going to injure someone, right? So because the women aren't wearing any sort of protective gear, there's a couple extra rules in place that we want to make sure that they're being safe out there, right? So the dangerous follow through is a specific women's rule, right? So essentially what this does is it puts the onus of the person shooting the ball in not to hit their opponent while they're shooting the ball with their stick, right? So if they're shooting and they follow through and the stick hits their opponent, that is illegal, right? So even if they score a goal, if the ball goes to their teammate, as long as they follow through and hit their opponent, it's a foul, right? So that is something that we want to look out for, especially in the women's game. Now, there's a caveat to this, right? If TJ winds up and throws the ball and hits me with it, and I'm just standing here, that is a foul. No, sorry, with your stick, right? So if he hits me, that's a foul, right? The only caveat to this is I cannot run into the path of TJ's stick in order to cause the foul, right? I have to be stationary or in line with TJ when he lets go in order for this to be a foul. If I'm over here and TJ shoots and I run into it and get hit with his stick, that's on me as the player. That's not a foul, right? So this is something that we need to make sure we are watching for. Is these sticks are very sharp and they do hurt. We definitely want to take that out of the game. Now, okay, so
You have a goal.
oh, we do have a goal. Okay, can we actually migrate over to the goal?
Yes, sir.
My opponent, but as soon as I'm back here and off him, and TJ and I are too far away from him, and we're standing side by side, this is walling, right? And this is dangerous because we are A, no longer playing defense on someone in particular, and B, we are in the path of potentially a shot being taken.
Think like indirect kick in soccer.
Yeah,
The
Soccer,
wall.
how they set up
In
the wall,
football,
Taking
not
the
okay.
wall.
not okay.
Not okay.
Yeah, so it is
That is
fine.
bowling. That is a major foul.
Yes, that is a major foul in the
Penalty.
defense,
Correct.
right? Because we want to make players safe, right? So we want to see this happen and basically take the option away of the shot coming in and hitting either TJ and I, right? So this is something that's very visual, right? So when it happens on the field, it'll be completely obvious, but it is kind of a rule that is hard to grasp until you see it. So essentially what you're looking for is a player that is further away from a stick length, right? So we need to be back here, and then at least two or more players that are either shoulder to shoulder or in line, right? So when you think about Chris's viewpoint, right? He either sees two people standing in front of him or more, or he sees basically a straight line of people standing behind him, right? And neither of us are particularly playing any defense on anyone. We're just standing in the way of a shot, right? So in order to disincentivize the defense from trying to block the shot with their body, this is a penalty that we're looking for in order to keep everyone safe on the field. Does that make sense? Does anybody have any questions?
Also,
The term which you use.
It's called walling.
Walling.
Walling, like the wall of the building.
Somebody is
Diwal, walling.
standing side by of the person who is
Vertically.
standing in front of me.
Yes.
So what is the foul there?
It's called walling.
Walling.
Walling, like the
Sir is
wall.
standing over here,
Yes.
and I am going this side. And you are saying that I have to stand in back side of you.
you can do whatever you want. You
Both
have
are
the
called
ball,
walling.
You're on offense.
Yes.
You can do whatever you want. We cannot do this.
It's a defensive foul, right? So it's not anything to do with the offense. They can do whatever they want. Okay?
It also, inside the goal area, you're only allowed one goalkeeper.
Yeah.
So if you have the ball and I'm the goalie, Tyler can't come
And stand here
and
because
stand
I'm too
like
far
that.
away.
Or if Chris is also on defense, Chris, come with me. And Tyler's also on defense. Tyler, come with me.
Now got it, sir.
No, that's walling still.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right?
Both are called walling.
One goalie.
Yeah.
Goalie is one.
And usually there is a circle painted around the goal. One person allowed inside of it on
Now
defense.
go inside that circle.
Okay.
So one